Welcome everyone to this webinar, How Gamasoft and NuoDB Speed Up Data Consolidation and Cloud Migration. My name is Seth Proctor. I'm the CTO here at NuoDB. Joining us on this call today is Alyssa DeVere, who's the U.S. Chief Marketing Officer for Gamasoft. And also joining us is Thierry Lezeau, who's joining us all the way from France, who is the Chief Technology Officer at Gamasoft. And we hope this is going to be an interesting discussion. We're very excited to be working together as partners, and we're really looking forward to talking to you about why this technology collaboration is interesting and what problems it may help you to solve. So, what we're going to cover on today's call, we're going to give you a quick introduction to NuoDB for those of you who are unfamiliar with what NuoDB is. We're going to talk a little bit about the benefits of consolidation, what we mean by consolidation and why this might be interesting to you. We will give you an introduction to Gamasoft as well, if you're unfamiliar with what Gamasoft is and what features it provides. A demonstration of Gamasoft, of what you can do with it, and specifically a demonstration of using it with NuoDB. And then, as I said just a few minutes ago, we'll end with a good time to do Q&A. So at any point during this call, if you have questions, if there are things you're curious about, things you'd like us to address at the end, just go ahead and put those into the chat, and we'll try to get to them. Or if we can't get to them during the call, we'll make sure to answer them after this call. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with NuoDB, NuoDB is a distributed database. It's a fundamentally new architectural design to relational databases, and so it's something that provides all the traditional features of a relational ACID consistent database, but is designed with a distributed fashion to run in a scale-out mode, to give you the kind of capability you want in a cloud environment, but to still present itself as a single logical database. It's a product that's been on the market for a little under a year, but it's been in development for many years. And in the time since it's been on the market, we've won numerous awards. We've been building up a strong developer community. We hope that you'll look into NuoDB if you haven't looked at it before. We particularly think we have an interesting kind of core technology, and please come to our website because you can learn more about what that architecture is and how it works. In a nutshell, part of why we're having this discussion and part of why we know that there are many of you out there who are interested in this question of how Gamasoft and NuoDB could be used together is because what we're seeing in terms of trends is an increasing concern by people in terms of complexity, in terms of cost of maintaining multiple databases, in terms of the pain around replicating between different databases for different use cases. And so what we're really going to be talking to today are some of these common pain points that we're seeing show up kind of time and time again in different surveys. Why NuoDB as the target database that you might want to consolidate to? Well, as I said earlier, NuoDB is a relational database. It's designed to provide you the functionality that you'd get from an Oracle or a SQL Server or a MySQL or a Postgres, but it's also designed to give you scale-out performance, and that's on-demand scale-out performance, to work in a geo-distributed environment, which means you can run NuoDB in multiple data centers, or say you're on Amazon in multiple physical regions, and still have a single, always consistent logical database. And that gives you nice features like continuous availability. It gives you the ability to have some hosts, some data centers, some processes failing, but the database continues to run, and you can always bring new things online to pick up after those processes. And again, it's just a SQL database, so it's something that many of you on this call probably already know how to use. And of course, that's kind of in contrast to historically what is hard to do with relational databases when you think about kind of scale-out architectures, cloud architectures, continuous availability architectures. Traditional relational databases are designed with a vertical scaled model. They're designed to handle more load by running on a larger single instance, but it's hard to scale out, especially on commodity hardware. It's hard to administer as you're starting to run on multiple instances. It makes it difficult to run in a geo-distributed environment without a fair amount of kind of infrastructure around it. And in particular, a couple of the architectural things to keep in mind as we're going through this webinar today about why we think NuoDB is a good candidate to use for kind of multiple use cases. As I said, one of the features that NuoDB really provides is high availability. And that's because we can provide this view of a single logical database that scales out across multiple hosts, is always active wherever you're running NuoDB. And that gives you high availability without kind of setting up explicit failover models or trying to build something into your application like sharding logic or worrying about some kind of shared disk approach. It's a much simpler, much easier to expand model that gives you high availability. It also, because of this model, makes it very easy to scale out. It makes it easy to scale out on demand. And there's no notion of kind of a master-slave or an active-passive scheme, again, because you're not thinking about sharding or any kind of explicit segmentation at your application layer. It's not a shared nothing architecture. It's a fundamentally different architecture. And that means that if you have different kinds of problems you're trying to solve, some databases that really are more about high availability, other databases that are more about being able to scale out, or databases where you simply need replicas, NuoDB can handle all of these problems kind of under one umbrella architecture. And not only do we provide kind of a core architecture for the database, but part of what we've done at NuoDB is build into our model a notion, kind of a formal notion of administration and management. And so not only do you have the view of a single logical database that's scaled across multiple hosts, maybe across multiple regions, but you also have a single logical point of management so that you can see all of the hosts that you've provisioned, you can see all of the databases that you're running, and you can work on diagnosing them, monitoring them, expanding them, kind of changing your service levels from a single point. And so it's really an easy place as you're thinking about going from multiple different databases that you might be running and trying to consolidate down to one or a few databases or just a single database technology. The administrative tools are there to make that easy, as well as to do the systems administration tasks, as well as managing the databases themselves. And finally, as I said, this architecture is fundamentally designed to support what we call geo-distribution, the ability to run in multiple physical regions at the same time. And again, that's partly because we don't have this notion of an explicit shared nothing kind of sharded architecture. We don't have some explicit notion of active and passive models in the system. It's a system that's designed to always provide consistency, but to provide low latency as you scale across multiple regions, and to support kind of either low latency or high availability use cases in a multi-region scale-out environment. And so finally, kind of where that gets us to is why I think this is such an interesting topic that we're discussing today, and why we're very excited to be working with Gamasoft. Gamasoft, you're going to hear a little bit more about that technology in just a minute. Gamasoft is a very mature, very powerful environment for being able to do replication between databases. And it can support many input databases. And so when you're thinking about, say a deployment where you might have different databases running, some that are more legacy, that you've been running for a very long time, that are rely on a particular hardware infrastructure, maybe others that you've been running ad hoc, some that you've actually been trying to move into a cloud environment. And you're thinking about how to simplify. You're thinking about how to get from many different databases, maybe many different licenses, or just many different tool sets and technologies, down to a simpler model. NuoDB is a great technology to use, and Gamasoft is a great way both to migrate from those environments and fundamentally to be able to keep running. Because often, you can see in this picture here, often you have databases that have been around for a very long time. And in the case of something like an Oracle or a DB400, you might still need to support those databases for a very long time. even in the case of newer databases, that you might have applications where a customer won't be ready to migrate off of that specific deployment for 9 months, for a year. And so what you want to do is you want to be able to start moving in the direction of a simpler technology that can solve multiple use cases, but you need to be able to support for some, for some long window of time your existing clients on existing databases. And so GammaSoft can really handle both those use cases, the migration, but then also the continued replication, so that you can move kind of at your own pace. And finally, that gets us to kind of what we're talking about here today, is that GammaSoft and NuoDB have formed a technology alliance together. And so we're working on ways to radically make it easier for you to move technologies, to do consolidation, to maintain real-time replication streams. And going forward, we'll be talking not just about kind of traditional use cases, but fundamentally some interesting things you can do when you have a very powerful kind of schema-aware and data manipulation-aware tool like GammaSoft working with a multi-tenant scale-out product like NuoDB. So with that, I'm going to actually turn this over now to Alyssa, who's going to talk more about GammaSoft. So Alyssa, please take it away.
Thanks, Seth. I appreciate it. Just give me a holler when you see the screen, just so I know everybody's looking at the same thing that I'm seeing. Should say overview, Seth?
Great.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, welcome everyone, and for the folks that are tuning in from Europe and around the world, we welcome you. Bienvenue. I am Alyssa DeVere, as Seth said, and I am the U.S. Chief Marketing Officer for GammaSoft. What I find really interesting in many kind of high-level ways is that, 20 years ago, or even more, I should say, late 80s, when the SQL database world really was starting to become into its own, Jim Starkey, one of the probably the visionary for NuoDB. I worked with a lot of really smart people back in the day. And while a lot of things have certainly progressed in terms of technology, there is a great comfort to see that there is still a respect and need to be cognizant of some of the legacy systems and be able to move forward into new architectures, into better ways of doing things that are not completely foreign. So, for example, when I was putting together this presentation and thinking about the kinds of applications and situations that the GammaSoft customer base is using these kinds of technologies, in many ways the applications aren't all that revolutionary, but there are some requirements that have really pushed on the technology so that it really has, ooh, sorry about that, guys, some interesting new requirements. So for example, business intelligence, BI, it's nothing new. I know that, you know that. But the need to have real-time information is certainly a much greater requirement today than it's ever been. Right now, as we're talking on this live webinar, it's December, and December means retailers start to panic because their entire life is really dependent on these next couple of weeks of sales. If they have to wait a day or even an hour in many cases to know what's going on with inventory and store sales and promotions and online marketing and so forth in an integrated, up-to-date way, they can't make those numbers happen. So real-time information for them becomes very important even in this idea of business intelligence that we've kind of assume is a deferred or delayed view. Compliance, again, nothing necessarily new, but the ability to bring together information that may be in different areas, different global areas, different systems, different operating platforms, different formats. Yeah, it still is an existing problem, and in some ways today, we can't really afford as companies to say to the auditors, come back next week. So it's very important that we have that ability. CRM, people in the call centers, if they are blindsided by the last transaction that you made and you're calling in to complain about it, that's certainly not a good business practice. So the ability to, again, integrate and provide real-time integration within a CRM environment. The mobile market, now that's something that is new. 20 years ago, we may not have really had the vision of what was to come, but certainly today we all walk around with one, if not multiple, mobile devices. And to be able to bring the applications together, so for example, if I am in the field or in a store or someplace that's remote from a corporate headquarters, can I get to the systems and data is obviously a big IT challenge today. Again, if that information needs to be delivered in a real-time way, it still becomes a good question mark in many IT budgets and plans. Big data, NuoDB and I are both in the Boston area. It's one of the major development areas for big data. We hear and study it all the time. And big data as a concept, again, may not be kind of this new revolutionary idea, but the way it's being done is very revolutionary. And being able to bring together large amounts of data, not just in terms of, again, a data warehouse environment, but something that's in more real time, that people can analyze as they need the information in a very reliable, high available way. That, again, is a new requirement for today's world. Cloud, again, same kind of issues. How do we get this information together in a reliable, high availability way? And one of the requirements that we hear a lot at Gamasoft is for organizations that don't just want a backup strategy or a contingency plan. They want to have a hot backup. They want to have an absolute replication of their data environment, particularly as that data environment goes into the cloud or has bigger data sets. It becomes that much more challenging. And so this is one of the key things that we hear all the time is how do we build a real hot backup so that we have a disaster recovery plan in place. And again, I don't think these problems are necessarily new, but I think they are exacerbated by some of the newer technologies and requirements in the market. What also seems to not be new is that when we try to do this kind of work using traditional tools, it can be very slow. It can be slow in terms of the development and slow of the data and the movement of the data. It can slow down the production systems, and of course that is, everyone should be cringing at that thought because we can't afford that no matter what business we're in, retail or nuclear energy for that matter. And of course at the end of the day, it's a very costly thing to do. So Gamasoft kind of looks at these issues and addresses them head on. Unlike other tools that you may be familiar with, have used, do use, it is not an ETL tool. It is not traditional middleware. We are not talking about building big data warehouses and so forth. And I'm going to explain to you in the next very few technical slides and then show you from a demo perspective why this is different. So a little bit about the company, just very briefly. This is a new company in the US, but it is a very well-established company throughout Europe. There are some of the clients that do use the technology already. It's an existing IBM business partner. We work with all the IBM platforms as well as many, many others you'll see. And it has been recognized in the Gartner Magic Quadrant report. So an existing company with existing clients, but new in the US, which is maybe why you have never heard of it. Schematically, here is a diagram to kind of give you an idea what Gamasoft does. And at the very highest level, the technology is utilized to move data from a source system or format to a target or multiple targets. And so on the top are just a sample of some of the source systems that we can work with. It really is across any operating system, just about any data system. And on the bottom, again, same thing, one to many, including, of course, the wonderful NuoDB that's highlighted there. We will be using this technology and some of those examples we talked about before to integrate, of course, to migrate. And it has some really powerful transformation capabilities as well. So if you are going from one data format to another, we can do that on the fly as well. And again, whether it's integrating, migrating, transforming, or replicating, there's some shades of gray in there depending on the different applications. Of course, this technology can do all of it. It is ultra fast. I'm going to actually prove these points to you today. It's sub-second, millisecond fast. Non-intrusive because I'm going to say this multiple times. It's not hitting the database directly. And when we go to set this up as well as it's running in real production, it is not intruding on either the target or the source systems. It works across the heterogeneous environment, of course, and there really isn't any program required. And I'm proving it by being the marketing person today doing the demo. So just a couple of technical features that I wanted to point out before we dive into a demo, because they're not always obvious to see, is that there is millisecond response time, as I mentioned. There's also guaranteed capture and delivery of transactions. Seth talked about the asset properties of database, but it gets very complex when you're not only in a distributed database environment, but a heterogeneous distributed database environment. And Gamasoft can help you maintain those asset properties across the different systems. There is massive parallelism built in with Intelligent Checkpoint to do this, and in fact, complete automatic recovery. So you don't have to be worried if a network goes down or a hard drive crashes. In many ways, we can talk about this during the Q&A, of course. Gamasoft will automatically go back and recover that transaction, including orphans that are left hanging. It's non-intrusive, as I mentioned, and it uses log technology. So it's hitting, it's not hitting the database. It's not even going really into your application itself. And I'm going to show you that in just a minute. So as a result of that, it doesn't require a production window, as it says for batch loading. You don't have to schedule this in and around your business operation. It can be running during business hours, 24/7, without disrupting any systems. Further testament to that is the entire system is installed and managed remotely. So our customers, when we go to install it, it's all done remotely wherever they are, even if they're located next door. A very small footprint, and again, we can get into some more details about this during the Q&A, but very, very low impact to the CPU and the overall system, whether it's target or source. And we mentioned the heterogeneous scalability, of course, and I just wanted to put a point here that it's using multi-stream data flow technology to accomplish that. Transformation I mentioned before, in terms of taking the data from the source and putting it to the target, there's a lot of intelligence that is built in, not just in terms of transformation, but also just on selection if this is data that needs to be transmitted to the target database, and all the aggregation, inner and outer joins, and all those other great things we do with relational database technology to pull data together and then make sure it gets to the target in the proper format. It is intended for non-developer users, and I'm going to show you that in just a minute, but really in our experience there's not any real maintenance or administration required, because again it's not touching your applications or data. So let me jump into a demo right here and now, and I'll give you a brief overview, and I'm going to do two different types of things here, and I'll break them up as we go. One is we're going to set up a connection and show you how easy it is to do, and that a marketing chick can do it. Not to say that you would want a marketing chick to do it, but that a DBA who has good basic SQL capabilities and understandings, great, but you don't even need the SQL to do this. It is pretty straightforward. The second thing that we're going to do is show you some updates and show you how fast and how it actually does work between a SQL database and the target NuoDB database. So the first thing we need to do when we set this up is create an environment. And I'm going to jump into the tool here and show you how it's done. We're going to set up a new environment, kind of call it MI1 and a SQL 1 system. We're going to leave it as a test environment, and we're going to just give it a name. And in this case, I'm going to call it migration, since we're going to be kind of modeling that. So that's done. Next, we're going to create a model, and we're going to add the desired tables from the SQL Server that we actually want to move to NuoDB. So back in the tool here, we're going to create the model. And the model, again, you can kind of call it whatever you want. I'm going to call it ADV, just because the name of the database that we're going to be hitting is Adventure. And we give it a description, and we add it. And basically, now we're going to add the tables. And I'm going to query for all of the tables just to make it real easy and quick in our demo. Pull them all over, say OK, and there they are. It's very straightforward. Step 3 now, I've got to create a target. And in doing that, I'm going to create a model to do that in the target database. So here's the target that we're going to go after. And the database that we want to put this into, or the system we want to put it into, is DD1. I'm going to type in the IP address. So I could certainly be using the DNS address or other way of identifying, but here, add that, drag it over. Okay. So step 4 now is we have to take the target information, the tables from SQL Server, and put them into that NuoDB table. So we're going to right-click on this. We're going to distribute the data, the model, into the new database. And so we're going to select where we want it to go, in this case, NuoDB. And we're going to log in here, just like I was, as if I'm the DBA. And I got to tell it where to go. To the Adventure database. And I'm going to test this just to make sure the connection's good. Perfect. And I'm going to add the schema table data and add it in, and there we go. And there's all the information that we are pulling from one to the other. We're going to create a target table now in the new database, in the NuoDB database that we're creating, or the NuoDB scheme. And so the final thing I need to do is actually push the data over. And so I do that very simply, again, by right-clicking, and I'm going to basically run the model. And there we go. And here are the two different databases put up in front of you. On the left is the SQL Server database. On the right is NuoDB database. And you can see now all those tables. I'll slide this over a little bit so you can see all the information, the tables in the schema has been put over there. And you can see on the left, we actually stayed in a French environment to show you even that it's kind of a global environment that we're working in here. So that's the setup. It's you know, kind of a short and simple example to show you, but those are the steps you would take no matter how many tables, no matter how much data you wanted to move from one place to the other. So the next thing I want to do is I'm going to switch gears and I'm going to update something just to show you how quick and how easy it is to do this. And in this case, I'm just going to update an employee's name. So I'm going to go here and find Terry. I'm going to manually just edit that. And I'm going to execute it and then look at it at NuoDB, and sure enough, there it is. Very quick. And this is in real time, of course, and you're seeing that it's instantaneous update. And here's the journal that shows exactly what I did. So very simple example. Maybe a little bit of a step up is to update an entire column to show you how that would work. And I'm going to pick a column called name style, which again is in the SQL database. Take a look at that. It is defined here. Let me slide over a little bit. The name style here is defined as 1, and the same here, of course, in NuoDB, because that's what we pushed over. So I'm going to go in using just some simple SQL, and set that name style to 0 and change that from 1 to 0. And as we say in French, voila, there it is, name style is 0. And again, very quick, very straightforward transaction between the two systems. So very quick overview just to give you an idea of how this works. It is a technology that is designed to move data from one place to another, and those places can be heterogeneous, distributed. It could be one-to-one or one-to-many, as we discussed before. It's integrating, migrating, transforming, and replicating that information with ultimate high availability, and of course, very, very quick in real time, sub-second response time. No program is required to set up, as you saw, but of course, you know, I'm sure you have very technical questions. So at this point, to give us the opportunity to ask any and all that's on your mind, I'm going to turn the webinar actually back to Seth so we can start getting some real technical questions answered.
Great, Alyssa, thank you so much. Very cool demo, really enjoyed that. And before we go into kind of an open Q&A, we're gonna just run a quick poll here for those of you who are following along at home. And we're just curious. The question on the poll is: would you like to discuss your own data integration needs or see a custom demo of this technology? So basically, we're just trying to understand, kind of for those of you who are listening, would you like to hear more about this? please vote right now. The polls are open. We'll leave it open for a few moments while you think about that. All right, great. Thanks for the feedback. So we've had a few questions coming in, and as I promised earlier, we're going to try to get to some questions at this point. I think the first question we have is for you, Thierry. The question is, can you explain more about how this is on the Gamasoft side? Can you explain more about how the log files are used and how the information is transmitted to the target databases?
Yes. Okay. Good morning for all. First, the capture process, the log reader for us, captures transactions from the transaction log once only and stores them to a Gamasoft transaction log. Then, every replication process uses only the Gamasoft transaction log, so they do not need to access the source database. The source engine reads the change from the Gamasoft transaction log, and then it's set to know whether to process a script to select, transform, aggregate, lookup, and call an external program or stored procedure on the fly. Then the source engine sends the selected events to the target engine in a parallel manner. The target also is set to know whether to process dedicated scripts and apply, or not, the event to the target database or to call a program. All of this happens in milliseconds within Gamasoft and outside the database or the various systems being aggregated. It makes sense for you?
Great. No, that sounds great. Thank you, Thierry. All right, so we've got a question here about NuoDB. Someone is curious, I guess, who hasn't played with the software already, where they can get it and where they can try running it. So NuoDB is basically a piece of software that you can download from our website. It's freely available to run on a couple machines to do testing or to do small production. And it'll run on Linux, Windows, Mac, so you have a great deal of flexibility. You can run it kind of on your laptop. You can run it on Amazon. You can run it in Google Compute. You can run it on your local data center. And so for those of you who are interested in trying this out, we highly recommend going to NuoDB's website and clicking through. If you want to try testing it at scale, you can ask us for a development license. We'll give you, for free a development license so you can try spinning it up on many machines and seeing what that feels like. Again, the design of NuoDB is to present what looks like a single database no matter how many machines you're running on. And so one of the ideas there is that you can really do testing. If you want to, say, grab it and put it on your laptop and run off to a coffee shop, you can do testing against NuoDB, and then when you're ready to try running something at scale or running replication live between using Gamasoft from some existing database you have, you can take that experience from developing on one machine and just move your application over somewhere else. So it's very easy to get running with. We have another question in a similar vein, but on the Gamasoft side. The question is, what is the typical footprint or other measure of resources needed to run Gamasoft?
My answer is 2 points. The first point, the Gamasoft source components, log reader and source engine, can be installed into the database source machine or into a Gamasoft machine. The Gamasoft target components can be installed into the target or Gamasoft or source machine. It is extremely flexible, and you can choose where you want to consume processor and memory. The second point is because only one process, the log reader, is connected to the source database, the footprint is extremely small, less than 1% to the database. It makes sense for you?
Yeah, that sounds great, Thierry. I think, and we have a follow-up question here that's more about kind of the capabilities of Gamasoft. So the question is around what kind of transformation is possible, and specifically, can you protect some rows in destination database to be different for the environment or only at the table level? So maybe you can talk a little bit to what kind of transform capabilities are available.
Oh, it's very powerful, the transformation, because it's writing script, and you can replicate many tables from many sources to one target table, one source table to many different target tables. You can select column, row. You can make computation, character processing. You can make test, loop, lookup, calling external program, decision test, event, etc. And you can also call external in a program in DLL, API, web services, .NET, store procedure in a SQL from the source or from the target database, and this is very, very powerful.
Great, thank you, Thierry. There's another question about NuoDB. The question is, so if NuoDB is a distributed database, when you're doing replication from Gamasoft, using Gamasoft from a single database source, where is it actually going? And that's a great question. So I mentioned NuoDB is a distributed architecture, and what that really means is that you can run on one or more systems, both kind of our storage tier and also our transactional layer. And the transactional tier is something you can scale out to as many instances as you want. And the idea is that when you're running SQL clients, you can be connected to as many different transaction engines as possible. You get a consistent view no matter which transaction engine you're connected to, and so you have a true scale-out database. And when you're bringing data into the system, that means you can be bringing data to a single transaction engine, or you can parallelize it across multiple transaction engines. Thierry, can you talk a little bit about how Gamasoft actually is doing bringing data into NuoDB architecturally?
Oh, sorry, I'm not understanding.
No, it's fine. The question is, in terms of how data is going from, through Gamasoft into NuoDB, is it taking advantage of multiple transaction engines, or is it bringing data to a single point right now? Is it parallelized essentially, or synchronous?
It's synchronous, but you can choose the parallelization because in the demonstration we can see only one distribution, but we can split of many different distributions to manage the parallelization and to choose the multi-stream data flow for the different transaction. And that's all. It's okay.
That's great. That's great. Thank you very much. So I think we're just about out of time at this point. I just want to repeat. I know a few folks on the phone had trouble hearing, and if you've since been able to get on but you missed some of it, I apologize for that. The slides will be available. The recording of this will be available after this webinar, and so we hope if you're interested in what you heard and you want to go back and re-listen to some of it, or if you didn't get a chance, we hope you'll you'll go online. The slide we have up right now has email aliases, both if you would like to ask some questions of Gamasoft, of what they're doing, or if you'd like to ask us at NuoDB some questions about our technology or about how you can get started kind of testing Gamasoft and NuoDB together. Those email aliases, again, are info@gamma-soft.com and info@nuodb.com. And so, again, I'd like to thank Alyssa and thank Thierry for being on this call. Again, my name is Seth Proctor, and until our next webinar, I hope you've enjoyed this. Thank you very much.